Even if the league's starting cinematic for the season wasn't exciting, at least Jinx's passive is called Get Excited, so we still have a reason to get excited over here. And even though maybe a lot of your favorite league content creators are quitting League of Legends content, Let's Talk Jinx is still here once again to start the season with patch 13.1 notes, in which case we're going to talk about changes to Jinx or other AD carries, because that will affect Jinx's lane matchups to start the season here, as well as something of an AD carry tier list in the comment section down below as made by you that you can share with each other. And it's kind of like a way for the community to kind of keep in contact and like talk about things with each other. It's a nice little idea. With that being said, one of the nice things, at least, is while there are no buffs to Jinx, not necessarily that she needed them, there are also no nerfs to Jinx. And the reason this is a little bit significant for Jinx is because, especially if you're new, like very new to the game, the last couple seasons, as far back as even season 8, which is actually half a decade ago already, I'm old, Jinx kind of did start off in a good spot, or at least a spot where then they buffed her within the first like 3 patches of season 8 and 9, for example. And then she was actually pretty good for at least the beginning of the season when people were starting their rank climbs and stuff like that, which we'll get into that in a second. But furthermore, a second point to finish this off is last season. As much as last season, season 12 was considered like a void season, lack of content and the like, Jinx was good for like the first half of last season. So maybe what this means for us is 2 things. One, she's going to be good as like a secret pick, a low-key, decent pick, not top pick, but a still viable and pretty good pick for this first part of the season. And then 2, because the rank split is now, divvied up into 2s, which I actually think is a horrible idea, to be completely honest. I like how in the post, like, we want to modernize League of Legends like other games and make multiple rank splits. That's a horrible idea. Opinion. This is definitely an opinion, by the way. But in my opinion, that's a horrible idea, because basically what it boils down to is play more ranked. And it's like, oh yeah, that's going to save everything that's going wrong right now. Playing more of the competitive and more toxic side of League. That's a good idea. But it does mean 2 Victoria skins, so if Jinx doesn't get it for the first split, maybe she'll get it for the second split. Let's go. But with that being said, what it also could mean is that, yeah, so we have this split and Jinx is either struggling or not relevant. Maybe in the second half of the rank climb, she will be relevant because she will get loved like midway through the season. So, with that said, that's more of a Season 13 overall change. For this specific patch, we do have some changes to other AD carries and supports that might change the matchup in lane. One of the first ones I want to talk about, because it's one that's everyone's kind of talking about, is Yuumi. Way down here. There is Xayah. We'll go back for Xayah, though. The massive Yuumi changes aren't here yet. All they've done here is continue with what they said they do in the preview last week. The Q-based damage is being decreased, so if you have a Yuumi on your team, she's not going to be doing as much damage and harassing, most likely. But if you're going against a Yuumi, even though you can't kill her if she's attached to the enemy AD carry, she's also going to be doing just less damage to you, because the Q-based damage is just not going to be worth... Well, I mean, it's worth, I guess, harassing people, but it's not going to be as bad as it was before. So instead of playing a 2v2, it's going to feel like a 2v1 more and more, because they kind of want to buff Yuumi's whole attach to people and, help them and heal them stuff, but not be able to attack other people, especially while attached thing, which I think is a decent direction you can go with that. Now, there's a bit of a risk there, right, where like the enemy AD carry might stay healed up, but it's basically a 2v1 despite the fact that there are 4 people there. Kind of like all the memes and the jokes, right? Xayah, meanwhile, I said we go back for, so much like the preview last week, the base attack speed and attack speed ratio is being increased, so Xayah will be able to trade with you if you are Jinx a bit better. And so it's just something to worry about a little bit. It's not attack damage, which means we can't talk about the classic, last hitting's gonna be better, blah, blah, blah. But it does mean, Xayah will be looking to, in trades, not run away from your minigun stacking attack speed. She's probably gonna feel a little bit good about, hey, I can fight you because I'm getting more feathers down behind you. You're immobile, and if I pull those back, then you'll be stunned. Surprise, I have a thresh, you're dead, kind of a thing. So you just gotta be a little bit careful about feather placements, which you always have to be, but they're gonna be like a little bit faster. Like I'm speaking a little bit faster right now, because that is gonna be a thing she's gonna be able to put out a good about a quarter of a second quicker, which in a game like League of Legends with ping and stuff, quarter seconds matter. So Zeri was another change, another AD carry change, where the attack damage growth is actually being decreased and the Q base damage is decreased. So this is like the opposite of the Xayah changes, where we're like, Zeri, meanwhile, while they have a rework coming as well, I believe, this is the opposite, where they're not going to want to be trading with you as much. The Q burst fire, which is also their auto attack, remember, that's how Zeri works specifically, is their Q is their auto attack. Has less damage on it, so their last hitting, their trading, their damage to towers, a lot of things are going down. As a matter of fact, by max rank, it's down 4 damage. and the attack damage growth is also down 0.2. So when you combine that over time, it's a lot damage that is not there suddenly when they're trying to maybe fight you and bully you in lane. Now, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily can just bully Zeri in lane. It doesn't like flip where Jinx is like, I'm going to use Fishbones like a melee weapon, and it's going to be all Jinx bully-tastic time. No, but what it does mean is if for some reason, I say for some reason because I just don't know what elo you are, and I'm going to call you out, listener, but if you struggle against Zeri, this might even things out a little bit more for you. And if you already dominated Zeri, you're probably going to put her in the dirt now. So that being said, one of the things to keep in mind is because these are base damage changes and attack damage growth changes, depending on the build they go, because I know some do Trinity Force, some do Lethality even, but if they go crit and attack damage, you'll be able to kind of cover that back up a little bit as the game goes on. So really for the laning phase is where you're going to have that biggest advantage if you're going to want to punch your ticket against a Zeri in the laning phase as Jinx. As we go over some of the item changes that are in there, none of these really affect Jinx unless you play like a Lethality Jinx, in which case this item up here is kind of fancy. The Lethality is going from 10 to 18 actually. And it's basically what that item does. I guess if you do play Lethality Jinx, you're like, hey, hold on, I'm actually interested. Can you explain that, please? In short, when you're in a fight and you get even an assist on somebody, that item will reduce your ultimate's cooldown by, I believe it's like, what, 10%? It's not a huge number, but it's per person. There's not a cooldown on it. So if you're in a team fight and 4 people get killed and you got assist on all of them, it does that per person killed, and suddenly your ultimate can be back up in 20 seconds. Especially if you're going full lethality, because other lethality items have a lot of cooldown. So you're firing super mega death rockets like every 20 seconds across the map once you get like a full build going. And the super mega death rocket, when you build lethality on it, will chunk a full health like Varus down to half health. And then in 20 seconds he has to run for his life because another missile's flying at him that will kill him with the execute damage. So it is it's more of like a for fun kind of a thing, but I'll throw that in there in case you need some fun to start this season, because Brink of Infinity was not fun. With that being said, there's some ARAM adjustments, there's some nerfs, there's some competitive stuff, which I can make a whole video about. Maybe I will, but I'm not going to put it in the Jinx video, you know what I mean? If you guys really want me to, like, it wouldn't really be a rant, but it would be kind of a critique. It'll be a separate video. So we'll just end this video because it's a Jinx video, and Jinx get excited. Jinx, it's her 10th year, by the way. 2023 is Jinx's 10th year. This should be like a great year for us, one way or the other, you know what I mean? But there are some Riftmaker skins. We're going to mention them briefly because some of them you might see in-game, people wanting to play them, and some of these champions do go bottom lane, so you might have a high chance of seeing them. For example, Sivir not only has a skin, but the Prestige Mythmaker skin, so you're probably going to see Sivir at least to start off the patch. Thresh, same thing. People are going to probably want Thresh mains. They're probably going to want to play the skin. You're probably going to see Thresh. You're probably going to get to play with Threshes too, and Thresh and Jinx is not a bad combo whatsoever. You're probably going to see some Ashe, some Zyra, and again, Sivir again. But that's really it from up here. So, you know, Zyra is a champion you might see on your team, either in mid lane, but also as a support. And they're like a harassing mage support, so that's not actually a total bad thing if the support wants to just kind of take over and, you know, do all the work, and we can just get the kills. As long as we get the W at this point, as long as I see that victory screen, I don't care anymore. That's how things are going at this point. But Ashe could be a little bit of a problem because she has the slows on her arrows when you're trading back and forth, the Q proc and stuff. Keep that in mind, be aware of that. And with that being said, that is all for the changes within the patch. So for an AD carry tier list, right? Nothing really changed from what we talked about last week as well. But one of the things I am seeing constantly pop up is just the state of AD carry. So I'm going to need y'all's help with the tier list this year. Or this patch. Because personally speaking, as a Jinx main, I'm down to say Jinx is fine. She's not the best, but she is fine. But then I see someone like Ike Pitako, right? Who's like known as a Jhin player, playing Jhin support. And for two reasons that I can see. One is because you can't have an annoying support if you are the support, right? But you also have to know how to play support if you're going to pull that off too, to be fair. But even in the LEC, right, which had their kickoff game, they played Jhin support. So there you go. But two, also because like AD carries, some people are saying they're not relevant, and not AD carries weak, they're not relevant, meaning some of them are good, but you don't need them anymore. And that's going to be an interesting discussion to see over these first couple patches. But here's how I would go about this if I had to give my own tier list to get you guys started. I'd say the A tier stuff right now, with the way games look like they're going, even with the amount of assassins that are in games, because I don't know about you guys, but I've still seen some of them are because people are maining those champions. So you're seeing like Katarinas and stuff because those are Katarina mains more so than, of course, Katarina's meta. Take this with a grain of salt. I think DPS AD carries are still better than like burst lethality AD carries right now. Even with the buff to the one lethality item, that's mainly for things like Nocturne and Assassins, not really for lethality AD carries, right? You got Xayah getting some buffs for attack speed and stuff like that too. Zeri, even though that's what's getting nerfed, it's because Zeri is just a problem like Yuumi is a problem, and they need to keep addressing those champions over and over. But overall, I do think when you have things like, we didn't talk about it because it's not really going to affect Jinx, we have like things like Mundo and stuff getting nerfed, right? Things that were maybe a bit too tanky that will probably still be around, but be a bit less tankier. You can DPS those things now. They're going to be able to be, you know, killed. You have things like Lissandra that, you know, are getting buffed, and that's definitely not a burst mage. She's more like a control battle mage, I think is the term they like to use for things like Victor and stuff, right? So sure, you have things like Jace coming in, where with his base AD being increased, he's probably going to want to build a poke build, and you might see poke AD carries kind of swap in within even the first couple patches. At this point in time, at this juncture, I would say that your like S tier, A tier AD carries are going to be your DPS ones, but probably your ones that have more mobility than others, or at least more siege power. So while honorable mention to Jinx, things like, I can't believe I'm saying this, Caitlyn, right? Tristana especially, because Tristana has built-in escapes. Things like those are probably going to be your nice one. Not Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw is his own tier. We never give Kog'Maw love because it's Kog'Maw. Sorry, Kog'Maw mains, if you are listening. But things like that, right? Where it's like things where you want to DPS, you want to scale. You don't want to scale too late. And I feel like with some of these things coming in, even by patch 13.2, this will change. But I think coming out of the preseason, yeah, even Misfortune, if you're doing like a attack speed build, I would still take most other things over Misfortune, like they learned the hard way in Worlds. But still, those things are the kind of, I feel like, the better go-to stuff. Lucian, I'd say, is like an honorable mention too. I wouldn't put him quite in like S tier, but he can DPS, but he also can cast and he can bully. He's kind of like your nice, well-rounded, get you through the beginning of the season kind of a thing. There you go. But again, put your own tier list in the comment section down below. What do you think? If you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I'm not an expert here. I'm just giving an opinion so people can have a talking point. That's what I do. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell notification, the actual subscribe button. But I don't know which video will be next because life can have a lot of kinks. So until next time, take care. ggGetJinxed. Thank you for watching and enjoy pizza responsibly.